My name is Elena. I'm 37 years old, and I think I'm disappearing. Not physically. Not in a way anyone else would notice. But inside, where it matters, it's like I've been slowly dissolving, one quiet evening at a time. I haven't told anyone that. Not my best friend, not my sister, not even him, the man I've shared a bed with for almost 12 years. My husband, James. And maybe that's the part that hurts the most. The silence. The slow, soft decay of what used to feel so certain. I didn't always feel like this. When James and I first met, it was electric, not the flashy kind of passion, but the kind that simmers beneath the surface and makes ordinary things feel alive. He made coffee taste better. He made the morning feel warmer. There was a time when just hearing his car pull into the driveway would make my whole body soften. We had our rhythm. His hands always found the small of my back in the kitchen. I used to reach for him in the dark, just to feel him breathing beside me. There was laughter. There was desire. Now, it's like living with a memory. He kissed me last night. I mean, he still kisses me out of habit, I guess. But it was one of those kisses where his lips touched mine and nothing inside me moved. No spark. No breath hitch. Just contact. And when we curled into bed, his arm draped over my waist like always, I realized I didn't feel held. I felt pinned. Not by him, but by the weight of everything where pretending still works. I used to think this kind of distance came after betrayal. A lie. A fight. Something sharp and obvious. But this? This is a slow suffocation. No one yells. No one slams doors. The love just fades into the wallpaper. Quietly. And in that silence, something unexpected grew. It started a few months ago, when his younger brother, Caleb, moved to town. Just for a while, he said. Just until he figured things out. He was always the free spirit. Messy, charming, unfiltered. He stayed with us for a few days until he found his own place. Nothing scandalous happened. But I noticed something I hadn't felt in a long time. I noticed myself. The way he looked at me when I laughed too loud. The way he asked how I was and actually waited for the answer. The way he complimented the things I'd stopped thinking James even saw anymore. The way I wore my hair, the meals I made, the books I left lying open on the kitchen counter. I started to feel seen. Not in a romantic way. Not at first. Just noticed. But that small, almost innocent shift, it turned into something dangerous. Because one night, the night James came home late from work again, muttering something about back-to-back meetings and deadlines, I lay beside him, like I always do. His breathing slowed, soft and rhythmic. He was asleep in minutes. And all I could think about was Caleb. Not in some dramatic, soap opera way. I wasn't planning to do anything. I just wondered what it would feel like to have someone want me again. To have someone reach for me because they couldn't not. I stared at the ceiling, guilt rising like heat in my chest. But also relief. Because the truth had finally surfaced. That was the moment. The exact moment I realized something had changed. Not just in my marriage. In me. And once you feel that, once your mind goes there, to the what-ifs, to the quiet ache for something you can't name, it's almost impossible to come back untouched. Because now, every night he sleeps beside me, I feel myself drifting farther away, thinking about the one person I should never think about. His brother. James got home early tonight. That used to make me happy. I heard his keys drop into the bowl near the door, then his heavy footsteps crossing the hardwood floor. I was in the kitchen, half distracted, stirring a pot of pasta I didn't even want to eat. He appeared behind me like he always does, silent, confident, and slid his arms around my waist. "Missed you," he whispered into the curve of my neck. I stiffened just a little, but I don't think he noticed. Or maybe he did, and he's just used to it now. His lips brushed my shoulder. He thought he was being sweet, romantic, but it felt off. Like a song you know but played in the wrong key. I've been home all day, I said quietly, keeping my eyes on the sauce. He didn't say anything right away. Just stood there, still holding me, like maybe if he wrapped himself around me tight enough, I'd soften. I used to. James is a paramedic, the kind of man who keeps calm when everyone else panics. He saves lives, solves problems, fixes things. That's how he loves, too, through action, through touch. And for a long time, I convinced myself that was enough. But I've changed. I need words. I need to be seen, not just held. And lately, every touch feels like it's covering up everything we won't say. He turned me toward him, tilted my chin up. You okay? I'm tired, I said, offering a weak smile. Just a long day. He kissed me then, deeper this time, his hand finding my lower back. The same move he's used since our second date. It used to make my knees go weak. Now, I just feel like I'm being handled, not held. I pulled away gently. James, not right now. The pasta can wait, he murmured, eyes dark. But I couldn't. It's not about pasta, I said, too sharply. It's everything. You come home and want to touch me like nothing's wrong, but we don't talk anymore, James. We don't even try. He looked confused. Hurt. I'm trying right now, Elena. This is how I show up. I come home early, I hold you, I kiss you. I don't want your hands if I don't have your heart, I snapped, the words spilling out before I could catch them. My voice cracked. I didn't want to fight. I just needed him to understand. His jaw tightened. You think I don't give you my heart? You think I work 14-hour shifts and rush back here because I don't care? You give your time. You give your body. But you don't see me. Not really. Silence settled between us. Thick. Uncomfortable. He backed away a step, shaking his head like he was trying to make sense of a foreign language. What do you want me to say, Elena? I'm not a poet. I don't know the right words. I show up. Isn't that enough? And that's when I realized it. James thinks showing up physically is the same as showing up emotionally. He doesn't mean to hurt me. He's just built different. Action over words. Solutions over emotion. Rescue over reflection. But I'm not in crisis. I'm in quiet collapse. And all his strong hands can't touch the part of me that's going numb. I turned away, pretending to check the stove. I don't want you to fix me, James. I just want you to see me. He stood there for a few seconds longer, like he might say something. But he didn't. Instead, he walked out of the kitchen. And I was left stirring sauce for a dinner that would go mostly untouched. One more night of silence shared between two people who used to know how to love each other. The worst part? When we finally went to bed. He slept beside me. But all I could think about, the one who actually listened, who noticed, was his brother. He walked in while I was folding laundry, fresh out of the shower, his hair still damp and messy. He wore the old gray t-shirt I used to love on him, the one that clung just enough to remind me why I fell for him in the first place. James grinned, that easy, boyish grin that still works on everyone but me lately. Caught you working too hard again, he said, moving closer. I'm just trying to finish this before dinner, I mumbled, not looking up. He slipped behind me, arms snaking around my waist. He kissed the side of my neck, slow and warm. Come on, he murmured, leave it for now. I missed you today. I didn't move. My hands stayed tangled in a pair of socks. He ran his hands over my stomach, dipping lower than necessary, the way he used to when that kiss would lead to the next thing. And then the next. But I wasn't there. Instead of warmth, I felt a knot tightening in my gut. James, I said softly. He leaned in closer. His hands found my hips. His mouth found my shoulder. I turned, gently, carefully, breaking his grip. I just want to get this done, okay? I tried to keep my voice neutral, even. But inside, I was crumbling. He looked at me like I'd slapped him. You okay? he asked, brows furrowing. I'm fine, I lied. His eyes searched mine. You've been distant lately. I gave a small shrug. I've just been tired. Tired, he repeated, like the word stung. Right. He turned to leave the room, but before he did, he gave my backside a playful little slap, the kind that used to make me laugh, used to pull a grin out of me no matter what mood I was in. This time, I flinched. Not because it hurt, because it felt like he didn't know me anymore. He stopped mid-step, looked back. Seriously? What's going on? I could have said 100 things right then. Could have told him I needed more than his hands. That his brother's compliments still echoed louder than any of James's gestures. That I felt like a ghost in my own marriage. But all I said was, nothing. Just stop, okay? We stood there in silence, both of us unsure where the line had gone invisible, the line where affection turned into obligation, where love started to feel like pressure. Later that night, in bed, he reached for me again. A gentle hand over my stomach. A kiss on the side of my face. His version of reconnecting. I knew it meant something to him, that he thought this was closeness. But for me, it was just another thing I'd have to fake. I lay still. Let him touch me. Let the moment stretch on awkwardly. I wanted to want it. God, I wanted to feel something again. To remember the heat, the heartbeat, the breathless kind of love we once had. But instead, all I felt was hollow. When he kissed me deeply, deliberately, I closed my eyes and tried to be there. But in my head, I was far away. In a kitchen with Caleb, laughing over something stupid. On the porch, sipping wine with someone who saw me. When James pulled back and whispered, "You okay?" Again, I nodded. He didn't ask twice. He just turned off the lamp, rolled onto his side, and started to drift. And me? I stared into the dark and whispered to myself, why does everything have to turn into sex? It was supposed to be a nice night. James had made reservations at that Italian place I used to love, the one with the string lights on the patio and the lemon risotto that always made me feel like I was somewhere else. Somewhere romantic. Somewhere far from real life. He even wore a button-up shirt, not one of his usual wrinkled work tees. He shaved, held the door open, said all the right things, but none of it felt right. We sat across from each other, wine glasses in hand, candlelight flickering between us. To anyone watching, we probably looked happy. Or at least trying. And maybe that's what we were, just two people trying to remember how to be in love. James smiled at me, warm and practiced. You look beautiful tonight. I forced a smile back. Thanks. He reached across the table, took my hand. I feel like I've barely seen you lately. I looked down at the bread plate, unsure where to place my thoughts. You're always working. He sighed, that here we go again kind of sigh. Elena, you know what I do. I can't just clock out at 5. People's lives, I know, I snapped, cutting him off. I know you save lives. That's what everyone loves about you. He blinked, caught off guard. Where is this coming from? I shook my head, suddenly hot in the chest. My throat tightened. I don't know, I whispered. I just feel like I'm not even in this relationship anymore. Like I'm furniture in our house. Like you see everything but me. James sat back, staring. We're here right now. I made time. I'm trying. But it's all performative, James. You made a reservation, you wore the shirt, and I'm supposed to what, melt? Forget how distant everything's been? How you only touch me when you want something? He looked stunned. Wounded. That's not fair. No, what's not fair is lying in bed next to someone who doesn't notice when you stop crying in the middle of the night, I said, the words breaking out of me before I could stop them. Silence fell over the table like a dropped glass. I hadn't planned to say it. I hadn't planned to cry in the middle of a restaurant. But there I was, lip trembling, eyes wet, voice shaking. James looked around, clearly uncomfortable, then leaned in. Can we talk about this at home? No, I said, too loud. No, because at home you fall asleep. And I lie there thinking about someone who actually made me feel alive. His face changed, jaw clenched, eyes narrowed. Who? He asked. Who makes you feel alive, Elena? I froze. The heat in my chest dropped to my stomach. His voice lowered. Is it Caleb? The silence between us gave him the answer. He stood up. Didn't yell. Didn't make a scene. Just walked away from the table, hands in his pockets, head down. I was left sitting there, blinking away tears in front of a half-eaten plate of risotto and a dying candle. Later that night, I sat in the bathroom, knees tucked to my chest, mascara smudged under my eyes. I didn't mean to say Caleb's name. I didn't even mean to think it out loud. But when you spend every day swallowing your feelings, there's a moment where your body just can't hold them in anymore. And they spill. Ugly, messy, brutal. I pressed my forehead against the edge of the tub and whispered, "What the hell did I just do?" I wanted James to see me. I didn't want to humiliate him. I wanted to feel wanted. I didn't want to destroy the man who once held my heart like it was the only thing that mattered. And yet, I'd done both. In one sentence. I hurt someone I used to love, maybe still love, because I couldn't figure out how to love myself while being invisible. And now, as I sat there in the quiet, I didn't know what was worse, that I'd said it out loud. Or that it was true. 3 weeks. That's how long it's been since the restaurant. Since I said the one thing you're not supposed to say, the kind of truth that doesn't land softly, that doesn't get tucked away and forgiven later. Since I saw James walk away from that table and realized I'd broken something. He still comes home every night. Still drops his keys in the bowl. Still takes his shoes off by the door. But the silence between us now is different. It's not just distance. It's defense. He barely speaks. Doesn't touch me unless he has to. Not out of cruelty, but protection. Like he's guarding whatever piece of himself I didn't already tear apart. He's quieter now. Colder. But not mean. Not spiteful. Just absent. And I don't blame him. He makes his own dinner now. Sits in the living room while I stay in the kitchen. I hear the soft hum of the TV, the occasional clink of a fork on a plate. But we don't eat together anymore. It's like we've become polite strangers, coexisting out of habit more than love. One night, I caught him sitting in the backyard with a beer in his hand, staring out at nothing. His shoulders slumped. His jaw tense. He looked older somehow. Like someone who had stopped hoping for the apology he knew he'd never get. And I realized I missed him. Not the version of him I'd built up in my head, or the one I kept comparing to Caleb. I missed him. The man who held my hand in the ER when I thought I was miscarrying. The one who rubbed my back when my dad died and stayed awake with me all night even though he had a shift at dawn. The one who didn't always say the right thing, but always showed up. And now I wasn't showing up. Not really. I thought I wanted passion, excitement, fire. But what I had before everything cracked was something solid. Something real. I just didn't know how to hold it anymore. The guilt came in waves. Every time I heard his footsteps retreat down the hall, every time he rolled over without saying goodnight, every time he looked at me like I was a locked door he no longer had the key to. And still, I didn't know how to reach him. I'd walk past him in the house, brushing elbows by accident, and the smallest things would ache. The way he didn't look up. The way he didn't smell like my pillow anymore. The way his toothbrush had been moved to the far side of the sink. I kept waiting for him to explode. To confront me. To demand answers. But he didn't. James just kept living, wounded, dignified, silent. I told myself that maybe this was just how things end. Not with screaming, not with slamming doors, but with all the words that never got said in time. But tonight, I caught myself standing at the bedroom door, watching him sleep from a distance. His chest rising and falling, the crease between his brows that deepened when he dreamed. He looked so familiar. And so far away. And something inside me whispered, "You still love him. Not in the same way. Not with the same ease. But in a way that matters." So now I'm sitting on the edge of our bed, wondering, do I try again? Or do I walk away and let the silence finish what I started? I don't know yet. But tomorrow, I'll have to choose. It was raining the night I decided to say something, not in the romantic, movie scene kind of way. More like a slow, gray drizzle that matched the air between us. Heavy, still, tired. James was in the living room, feet up on the coffee table, flipping through the same channel list he always scrolled and never picked from. He didn't even glance at me when I walked in. I sat down on the edge of the couch. Close, but not touching. "I owe you an apology," I said softly. He didn't look over. Just nodded once, like he'd been waiting for those words, but didn't want to hear them out loud. "I said things I didn't mean," I continued. "And I didn't say the things I should have. I was lonely, James. Not because you weren't here, but because I didn't know how to ask you to see me differently. And instead of trying, I made everything worse." He let out a slow breath through his nose. Still no eye contact. "You were thinking about Caleb," he said, finally. I flinched. It wasn't like that. It wasn't him. It was what he noticed. "What I forgot to ask you for." He turned to me now. His eyes were tired, red-rimmed. "Do you love him?" I shook my head. "No. I loved that someone paid attention to me when I stopped asking you to. But I never loved him." The silence that followed wasn't as cruel as I expected. It felt real. Like the ground was finally steady enough for the truth to stand on. "I don't know if we can fix this," he said. "I'm not the man who knows the right words. I never have been. I don't need perfect words," I said. "I just need us to stop pretending." He nodded again. "I don't want to keep hurting each other." "Me neither." And then, quietly, he reached for my hand. His fingers were rough, calloused, warm, and hesitant. The way you touch something fragile. We sat like that for a while. No big promises. No dramatic reconciliation. Just hands. Touching. Later, as I got up to go to bed, I noticed he didn't follow. Instead, he grabbed a blanket and settled onto the couch. Not angry, just knowing. He looked up at me and said, "Let's take it one day at a time. If we're going to try, let's start slow." I nodded. And as I turned off the light, I walked back over to him, bent down, and pressed a kiss to his forehead. Not out of romance, but out of respect for the man who stayed, even when I didn't deserve it. Funny how the hardest truths are the ones we whisper to ourselves when no one else is around. There was a time, not that long ago, when I believed love was something you either had or didn't. That it was obvious. Loud. Always clear. But now, I know better. Love isn't loud. It doesn't always shout. Sometimes it goes quiet. Sometimes it slips into routine. Sometimes it forgets how to speak at all. And when it does, you start listening for something, anything outside of it that reminds you you're still alive. Still seen. Still wanted. That's what happened to me. I was lying in bed beside a man who used to be my whole world, and I couldn't feel him anymore, not in the way that mattered. His hand on my hip felt like habit, not hunger. His kisses were familiar, but not stirring. I used to think that meant the love was gone. But the truth is, I had stopped speaking too. I waited for James to read my mind, to notice the changes in me without saying a word. I wanted him to guess that I felt invisible, that I needed more. And when he didn't, I blamed him for a silence I helped build. And then, I let someone else notice me. That was the part that twisted me up the most. It wasn't the feelings for his brother, not really. It was the ache of being recognized, complimented, understood. But those aren't reasons to betray someone's trust. Those are signs that something is missing, something I should have fought for, not avoided. James isn't perfect. He never was. He's a man of action, not words. He fixes people. He saves them. But no one ever taught him how to sit in discomfort, how to talk through the stuff you can't treat with a bandage and a stethoscope. And me? I'm an expert at feeling, at overthinking, at burying things until they explode. We were mismatched in our language of love, and neither of us knew how to translate the other. What I've learned is this: desire fades when emotional connection fades first. Physical touch feels hollow when it's not backed by truth. And silence, over time, becomes its own kind of betrayal. But what surprised me most? Forgiveness is quiet, too. It doesn't come with fireworks or a grand gesture. Sometimes it looks like sleeping on the couch for a few nights. Sometimes it's just holding hands during a movie, or making dinner without saying a word, or answering a question you'd usually ignore. We're still trying. Slowly, carefully, we've started seeing a therapist. Not because we're broken, but because we've finally realized we don't have to fix it alone. Some days are better than others. Some days I still think about leaving, about starting over, about what it might feel like to be someone else, somewhere else, untouched by this particular kind of grief. But then I see him, washing dishes without being asked, sitting beside me when I cry during some old rerun, reaching for my hand under the blanket, and I remember that love isn't always about the feeling. Sometimes it's about the choice. To stay, to listen, to speak, to forgive. If you're watching this and you feel like I did, like your world is quieter than it used to be, like the person beside you has become a stranger, I want you to know, you're not broken. You're not wrong. You're just human. And sometimes the hardest part of love isn't losing it. It's learning how to find it again after you stopped looking.